The Quiet Corner Cafe was a cold Monday morning in downtown San Francisco, and the city was slowly waking up under a gray sky. The streets were still damp from last night's drizzle. Traffic lights blinked lazily, and the occasional early commuter moved like shadows between buildings, clutching steaming cups of coffee, as though they held the warmth of the sun itself. Just off the corner of Market Street stood a small, nearly hidden coffee shop with fogged-up windows and a sign that read, "Bean and Soul" in fading letters inside. The smell of roasted beans hung thick in the air, mingled with the soft hiss of steamed milk and the comforting rustle of newspapers. A single barista worked behind the counter, a young woman in her early 20s named Alina. She had curly black hair tied back in a messy bun, sleeves rolled up to her elbows, and tired eyes that still held a spark of kindness. She moved with quiet purpose, crafting drinks with a precision that could only come from passion. It wasn't just a job to her. It was a chance to bring people comfort, if only for a moment. Alina had dreams, once big ones. She wanted to be an architect. She wanted to build homes for people who didn't have any. She had even earned a scholarship to college. But life had its own blueprints. Her mother got sick, and Alina dropped everything to care for her. The hospital bills piled up like bricks in an unfinished wall, and now Alina worked double shifts. Just to keep the lights on at home, most of her customers came in without looking up. They ordered the same drinks every day, paid with cards, and left with earbuds in and eyes glued to their screens. But Alina smiled anyway, always adding a tiny heart in the phone, always saying, "Have a beautiful day." Even when her back ached and her hands were red from scrubbing dishes, she believed that kindness mattered. That morning, just as she was wiping down the counter, a man walked in who didn't seem to fit. He wore a plain hoodie, jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. His shoes were slightly dusty, and he held his phone like he was reading something important. There was something calm about him, something gentle but strong. He stood, in line like everyone else, waiting his turn patiently. When he reached the front, Alina looked up and smiled. "Good morning," she said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "What can I get started for you?" The man paused for a second, then smiled back, though it was small. "Just a regular black coffee, please." She noticed his voice was soft, thoughtful. It wasn't rushed like most people. "Coming right up," she said. "On the house today," he blinked. "Excuse me?" Alina shrugged. "You look like you've had a long morning." "It's just coffee." "Consider it a kindness?" He looked at her with curiosity, like he wasn't used to people offering something for nothing. "Thank you," he said, after a moment. "That's very kind of you." As she poured the coffee and handed it to him, their hands briefly touched. Something unspoken passed between them, something familiar yet strange. He nodded and stepped aside, taking a seat by the window. Alina returned to her work, not thinking much of it. People came and went. Orders were placed and picked up. Steam rose and vanished, but the man didn't leave. He sat there sipping the coffee slowly, eyes occasionally watching her. She caught him looking once or twice, but he'd quickly glance away. Finally, after about 20 minutes, he stood up and walked back to the counter. "This is really good coffee," he said. Alina smiled. "I'm glad you think so." He hesitated again. "What's your name?" She blinked. "Alina." He nodded slowly, as if filing it away. "I'm Raj." He extended a hand, and he shook it. "Nice to meet you, Raj." Then he leaned in slightly and asked, "Do you know who I am?" Alina tilted her head. "Should I?" He chuckled, a deep, warm sound. "Probably not, but I promise you will." Before she could ask what he meant, he set down a napkin on the counter, nodded once more, and walked out into the misty morning. Alina looked down at the napkin. It had a neat handwritten message. "Thank you for the coffee." It was more than just a drink. -S.P. She furrowed her brows. The initials didn't make sense to her. She thought about it for a while, then slipped the napkin into her apron pocket and got back to work. There was rent to pay and dishes to clean. Asterisk. Meanwhile, outside the cafe. Raj, whose real name was Sundar Pichai, slipped into a waiting car. His assistant looked at him curiously. "Did they recognize you, sir?" Sundar shook his head with a smile. "No, and that's what made it special." The car pulled away into the busy streets, but Sundar couldn't stop thinking about the girl behind the counter. Something about her calm strength had struck a chord deep within him. Asterisk, asterisk, the next morning, Sundar returned. This time, Alina didn't notice him right away. She was deep in conversation with an older man who looked homeless. He had a long beard and a coat full of holes. She handed him a warm sandwich and a cup of coffee without charging him. "Just promise me you'll eat all of it, okay?" She said gently. The man nodded gratefully. "You're an angel," he said, and shuffled out the door. Sundar stood silently, watching. When Alina saw him, she looked surprised. He came back. "I told you it was good coffee." They both laughed. He ordered the same black coffee, and this time insisted on paying. Alina accepted, but only after some playful back and forth. She had no idea who he really was. To her, he was just another kind soul in a city full of tired faces. But to Sundar, this tiny cafe was becoming something more. It was a window into a world he rarely saw anymore without meetings, mergers, or stock prices. A world where kindness still lived in the steam of a simple cup of coffee. What he didn't know was that Alina's world was about to fall apart. Asterisk, asterisk, that night. After her shift, Alina took the bus home. Her neighborhood was quiet, a mix of small apartments and old houses. She climbed the stairs to their unit and unlocked the door quietly, not wanting to wake her mother. The living room was dim, and a soft humming came from the oxygen machine in the corner. Her mother was sitting up on the couch, knitting a small scarf with trembling fingers. "You're late, sweetheart," she whispered. "Sorry, Mama." There was a rush near closing. Her mother smiled. "You work too hard. You need your medicine, Mama, and rent's due Friday." They ate dinner together, plain rice and lentils. As they ate, her mother looked at her with tired eyes. "You still have dreams, right?" Alina nodded, though she didn't speak. Later that night, while her mother slept, Alina sat at the window and pulled out the napkin from her pocket. She traced the letters again and again. S.P. She didn't know it yet. But her small act of kindness had already started a ripple that would change her life forever. Asterisk, asterisk, the next day. Sundar didn't show up. Nor the day after. But on the third morning, something strange happened. A tall man in a dark suit entered the cafe. He looked around, spotted Alina, and walked up to the counter. "Miss Alina?" he asked. She nodded, cautious. "I'm here on behalf of someone who wishes to remain anonymous. For now." He handed her an envelope, thick and heavy. "What is this?" she asked, heart racing. "I thank you," the man replied, "for the coffee." Then he turned and left. Asterisk, asterisk, Alina stared at the envelope. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a letter. "You gave me something without asking for anything. Now let me do the same. Use this to follow your dreams. Don't look for me. Just pay it forward someday. -S.P. Beneath the letter was a check. Alina gasped. The number written on it made her knees buckle. It was enough to pay off her mother's hospital bills. Enough to enroll back in college. Enough to start her life again. Asterisk, asterisk. But just as tears filled her eyes, the door to the cafe slammed open. 2 men rushed in, one shouting, "That's her." I saw it on the security footage. They were from a nearby business. Apparently, one of them had left his wallet on the counter a week ago, and it had gone missing. They pointed at Alina. "You took it, didn't you?" "What? No," Alina stammered. They pulled out a phone and began filming. "Let's see how many people buy coffee from a thief." Alina's heart pounded. Her hands shook. She looked around, but the customers just watched in silence. Some were whispering. Others were already pulling out their phones. And then, just as everything seemed to be crashing down, the door opened again. A familiar voice spoke, calm but firm. "That's enough." Everyone turned. And there stood Sundar Pichai. Not in a HOODIE. Not in a cap. But in a suit. Unmistakable now. Every phone dropped. Every mouth fell open. And Alina whispered, "What are you doing here?" Asterisk, the man behind the curtain through him seemed to freeze in place. The soft hum of the coffee machine faded into silence, the air charged with disbelief and curiosity. Everyone inside the cafe stared at the tall figure standing at the door, eyes wide, mouths slightly open. No one could believe what they were seeing. The man in the suit, the one who had just walked in like a wave cutting through still waters, was none other than Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, one of the most influential figures in the tech world. But to Alina, he was just Raj, the quiet customer who liked his coffee black and smiled with his eyes. He took slow steps forward, his voice composed but commanding. I said that's enough. The two men who had barged in, accusing Alina of theft, blinked in confusion. The one holding the phone lowered it slightly. "Wait, is that—" "Yes," Sundar said calmly, cutting off the question. "And I saw everything." He turned his gaze to Alina. She stood behind the counter, eyes wide with shock and fear, one hand still clutching the envelope with the check inside. Her lips trembled. She had never seen him like this, so confident, so clear in his presence. All this time, she'd been serving coffee to a man who could change the course of lives with a single decision, and she had no idea. "Mr. Pichai," she whispered, barely able to say his name. He nodded gently. "We'll talk in a minute." Then he turned back to the two accusers. "You claim to have security footage?" Sundar asked. The taller man cleared his throat. "Yeah, our cameras showed she was the last one behind the counter that day. My wallet disappeared after that." "And you assume she took it?" Sundar's tone was still even, but there was steel beneath the words. The man looked defensive now. "Well, I mean, it was gone, and did you check your own transaction history? Your card? Did you report it missing before walking in here and humiliating someone in front of strangers?" The other man, younger and nervous, muttered, "We didn't mean to cause a scene." "But you did," Sundar replied, not raising his voice, but somehow making the whole cafe feel like a courtroom. "And you've probably recorded enough for your followers, haven't you?" The man with the phone awkwardly slid it into his pocket. Sundar stepped forward, eyes locked on the accusers. "You owe her an apology." Neither man moved now. They both turned to Alina, who was still frozen in place, cheeks burning. "Sorry." The taller one mumbled. "We were wrong," added the younger one, his voice barely audible. Alina nodded slowly, though she couldn't find the strength to speak. Her hands trembled, not just from anger or embarrassment, but from the whirlwind of everything crashing down and rising up all at once. Sundar motioned toward the door. "You can go now." And they did quickly, awkwardly, like schoolchildren scolded by a teacher. Once the cafe door shut behind them, a long silence followed. Customers stood still, unsure whether to applaud, speak, or leave quietly. Sundar turned to the room and addressed them in a calm voice. "I'm sorry for the interruption, but sometimes defending someone quietly isn't enough. You have to say something when it matters." People slowly nodded. One or two clapped lightly, and then others followed. But Sundar wasn't there for applause. He walked to the counter, now only a few feet from Alina, and gently asked, "Are you okay?" She shook her head, not because she was hurt, but because she was overwhelmed. You're him," he smiled softly. "I'm still Raj, too." "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked, voice thick with emotion. "Because I needed to see something for myself," he said. "I needed to remember what genuine kindness looked like. You reminded me." She looked down at the envelope again. "This was from you?" "Yes." "Why?" He paused, choosing his words with care. "Because when people become powerful, they often forget where they started. I didn't grow up with much. I remember standing in lines for food, saving for a single bus ticket, dreaming with nothing but hope. And then I met someone who reminded me that the simplest acts, like giving a free cup of coffee, can still change lives." Alina's eyes filled with tears. She didn't cry often. She didn't let herself. But now the weight of months of struggle, of sleepless nights, Of worrying about bills and broken dreams, it all spilled over. I didn't think anyone noticed. She whispered. But I did, Sundar said gently. Asterisk, asterisk, after a long moment. Sundar reached into his pocket and pulled out a small card. He placed it on the counter. This is my direct contact. Call me when you're ready. I want to help you do more than just pay off bills. I want to invest in your future. Alina blinked in disbelief. Why me? Because you reminded me of my mother, he said, his voice almost breaking. She sacrificed everything so I could have a chance. And you've done the same for your mom? For people in need? For strangers? That's the kind of heart this world needs more of. Before she could respond, Sundar gave her a nod and turned to leave. But as he reached the door, he looked back. One last time. And Alina? She looked up. This cafe. It might be small, but today it became the most important place in my world. Asterisk, asterisk, after he left, the cafe slowly returned to its rhythm, but everything had changed. Customers began approaching Alina not just with curiosity, but with kindness. Some left large tips. One woman offered to help her mother with medications. A young college student said, "You gave me hope. Thank you." Alina was stunned. It felt like a dream, but it was real. And in her apron pocket, she now carried not just a napkin, but a check and a card that could change her future. Asterisk, asterisk, that night, Alina returned home and told her mother everything. They cried together, held hands, and talked long into the night. Her mother, whose health had been declining, looked stronger just hearing the story. "I always told you," she said, holding her daughter's face. Kindness is never wasted. But while Alina tried to sleep that night, a seed of doubt began to grow in her heart. She had never wanted attention. What if people thought she did it for fame? What if Sundar changed his mind? What if all of this disappeared? Her mind swirled with questions she didn't know how to answer, and she had no idea that the next morning, the story would break across every major news outlet. Asterisk, asterisk. It started with a single photo Sundar Pichai standing inside a small cafe, defending a barista with passion and dignity. The headline read, "Tech giant defends unknown barista from public shaming, then leaves her with a life-changing gift be noon." The story had gone viral. Thousands of people were sharing it. Celebrities posted about it. Influencers made videos. And most importantly, the spotlight was now firmly on Alina. Some people praised her strength. Others questioned her motives. Old classmates messaged her. Distant relatives came out of nowhere. Journalists called the cafe, asking for interviews. She didn't know how to handle any of it, by the time Sundar called later that evening. She was overwhelmed. "Alina," he said gently. "Take a deep breath. I don't want fame," she said. "I just wanted to help people. I never asked for this." "I know," Sundar said. "And you don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with. I can help manage it. Protect your privacy. But the truth is, your story has already helped people. People are inspired because you chose kindness over profit. I feel like I'm losing control of my life." "Then let me help you take it back." Alina exhaled slowly. "How?" "Come with me," he said. "Just for a few days. Leave the city. See something new. Breathe again. Then you can decide what you really want." After a long pause, she said, "Okay." Asterisk, asterisk, the next morning, Sundar sent a car. Alina kissed her mother goodbye, promising to return soon, and stepped into a new world. They flew to a quiet retreat in Northern California. No reporters. No fans, just trees, lakes, and peace. Sundar showed her how to meditate, how to pause, how to silence the noise of the world. They talked about life, about dreams, about fears. Alina shared her sketches, dreams of community centers, shelters, places filled with light and safety. Sundar listened, truly listened, and then he said something that would change everything. "What if we built it together?" Alina's eyes widened. "You mean, not just fund it," he said, "but co-create it. I want your vision, your heart, your soul in every brick." Tears filled her eyes. She had never imagined someone so powerful would not just help her, but believe in her completely. But Just as she was about to answer, his phone rang. His expression changed instantly. Serious, focused. I need to take this, he said, stepping away. Alina watched him from a distance. Something was wrong. She could feel it. Asterisk, asterisk, when he returned. His face was pale. What happened? She asked. He hesitated, then spoke. Someone leaked your mother's medical history. What? It's all over the internet. Tabloids, they're trying to discredit you. Say you faked the story for money. Alina's knees weakened. Sundar caught her, just in time. Don't worry, he said. We'll fight this. How could they? His voice was firm now. Someone doesn't like what we're doing. Maybe a competitor. Maybe someone from my past. But whoever it is, they've made a mistake. Alina looked up at him, eyes full of fire. Then let's make sure they regret it. Asterisk storms behind the spotlight. Sun that morning filtered gently through the tall redwoods surrounding the retreat house. But its golden warmth did nothing to ease the chill that had settled over Alina's chest. She sat on the wooden deck in silence, legs curled beneath her, watching the breeze sway the trees with careless grace. In another world, this scene would have been peaceful, calming. But today, it felt like the calm before a storm. Her phone buzzed again on the table beside her. She didn't want to look at it. Every vibration sent a tremor through her ribs. But curiosity, or perhaps a need to face the chaos head-on, made her pick it up. The screen was filled with new notifications, messages, missed calls, social media mentions. Headlines stared back at her in bold, invasive fonts. Was the barista's story too perfect? Sundar Pichai caught an emotional publicity stunt. Hospital records leaked. Barista's mother not as ill as claimed. Alina felt like someone had ripped her world apart, thread by thread. She stared at the phone until the words blurred, until the screen dimmed on its own. She wanted to scream. But even more than that, she wanted to disappear. Inside the retreat house, Sundar sat in front of a table, laptop open, phone to his ear, his expression carved in stone. He was speaking with someone in firm, controlled tones. When he noticed Alina standing quietly in the doorway, he finished the call and closed his laptop. They're doubling down, he said. News outlets are spinning the leak as independent investigation. There's a coordinated effort to discredit you and by association, me. But why? Alina asked, her voice raw. Why would anyone go this far? He leaned back slowly. Because in our world, kindness scares people. When someone powerful shows heart, it threatens those who use cruelty as a currency. This isn't about coffee anymore. It's about something bigger. Someone's trying to break our story before it becomes a movement. Alina felt a sinking weight in her stomach. But my mother, they invaded her privacy. They're lying? I know, Sundar said gently. And I promise we will clear your name. But right now, we need to be careful. Alina nodded, but her hands clenched into fists. I don't want to be careful. I want to fight back. And we will, Sundar said, but smartly. Asterisk, asterisk that afternoon, Sundar called an emergency meeting with his personal legal team. They gathered virtually on a secure conference line, their faces appearing one by one on the screen. Corporate attorneys, digital privacy experts, public relations strategists. Sundar introduced Alina formally, not just as the barista who had offered him coffee, but as his partner in a future initiative that he called Project Hearthstone, a plan to build community spaces powered by compassion, designed to bring education, housing, and resources to underserved areas. Our goal, he said, is not to fight back with vengeance, but with vision. Alina sat beside him, nervous but inspired. She had never spoken to this many high-powered professionals in her life, but when one of them asked her if she wanted to sue the media for defamation, she raised her hand slowly. I don't want a lawsuit to be the first brick of our foundation, she said. I want people to see that we're not afraid. Let's show them who we really are. Let them see the truth by our actions, not our anger. There was a brief silence, and then one of the PR strategists smiled. She's right. Public opinion shifts not with legal wins, but with stories that resonate. We need to tell the story before they do. Asterisk, asterisk, the plan was set in motion that evening. While legal teams began filing complaints to trace the original source of the leak, Sundar arranged for a controlled media event, not a flashy press conference, but a heartfelt conversation hosted by a trusted journalist known for ethical storytelling. The interview would take place in a neutral location, a small community library Sundar had helped build years ago. It was quiet, symbolic, and safe, but leading up to it, tensions rose. Trolls flooded Alina's social media with hate. Strangers showed up outside her apartment building. A well-known gossip site published photos of her childhood, suggesting her past was filled with delinquency. Based on a single photo of her wearing dark eyeliner and a hoodie at age 15, Alina broke down in the bathroom that night. "I don't want to be strong anymore," she said through tears. "I didn't ask for any of this." Her mother, now recovering better thanks to consistent medication and care, held her daughter's face gently. "Sometimes life chooses you even when you don't choose it. And when that happens, baby, you don't run. You rise." Alina hugged her mother like she did as a child, holding on, as if letting go would mean falling apart. Asterisk, asterisk, the day of the interview arrived. Alina wore a simple navy dress, her curls tied back, no makeup, but a quiet confidence that radiated through her exhaustion. Sundar wore a gray blazer over a plain shirt, nothing that screamed CEO, but everything that said real. They sat side by side across from the journalist, a soft-spoken woman named Mia Torres. The cameras rolled quietly. No flashing lights. Number? Interruptions. Mia began. "Alina, thank you for being here. Can you tell us in your own words what happened that morning at Bean and Soul?" And Alina told it all, from the exhaustion of working double shifts to caring for her mother, to offering a stranger a free coffee simply because he looked tired. "I didn't know who he was," she said. "He just looked human, and I thought maybe for a moment I could make his day a little better." Mia nodded. "And when you found out it was Sundar Pichai?" Alina smiled softly. "I didn't believe it at first. But the truth is, it didn't change how I saw him. He was kind before he was famous." Mia turned to Sundar. "Why did that moment mean so much to you?" Sundar leaned forward. "Because in her small gesture, I saw the world I want to live in. One where people care about each other, not for what they can get, but for what they can give." The interview touched on the hospital bill leak, the accusations, the trolling. None of it is true, Alina said, firmly. "We've always struggled, yes, but my mother is sick. We've never faked that." Mia concluded with a powerful question. "What do you want people to take away from this?" Alina looked at the camera. "That kindness is a choice. And if you choose it, no matter how small, it can change the world." Asterisk, asterisk. The interview aired the next night, and it shattered every expectation. Millions watched. Comments flooded in. Hashtags like hashtag Bean and Soul and hashtag Kindness Matters trended globally. Got celebrities reposted clips. Politicians quoted Alina's words. Teachers played the video in classrooms. And for the first time in weeks, Alina's name wasn't being dragged through the mud, but lifted into the light. Donations poured in for Project Hearthstone, and yet in the shadows of all that hope, darkness stirred. Asterisk, asterisk, late one evening, Sundar received an encrypted email from a trusted contact in Europe. It was short. Just a few lines. "Someone inside your circle sold the hospital records. They were paid to discredit you and Alina, and it's not over." Sundar read the message twice, then once more, a betrayal. Someone close to him, someone he trusted, was behind it. He looked up and saw Alina across the room, sketching out ideas for a community center. Her face calm, hopeful. He knew he couldn't tell her yet, not until he was sure. But as he stepped outside into the cold night air, he made a silent vow. "Whoever's behind this, you won't win." Asterisk, asterisk. Meanwhile, in a dark office somewhere across the country, a man leaned back in his chair. Watching the interview, he picked up his phone. "We need to move faster," he said into the receiver. "The girl is stronger than we thought." Pause, yes. Take her down from the inside. Asterisk cracks in the mirror's retreat ended quietly, with no fanfare and no goodbyes loud enough to echo. Sundar and Alina returned to the city with hearts full of fire and a vision that was quickly growing from seed to sapling. Project Hearthstone was no longer just an idea, it was a mission, and the world was watching. But as the light grew brighter, so did the shadows. They arrived at Sundar's private innovation hub nestled within a glass and steel building that overlooked the bay. Inside, teams of designers, engineers, and planners were already working on concepts inspired by Alina's original sketches. Floor plans for multi-purpose community centers glowed on oversized screens. Early prototypes for modular shelters stood on display. Alina moved among them like she belonged, not as a guest, but as a visionary whose voice mattered. "We're going to build the first one here in Oakland," Sundar said, gesturing to a detailed blueprint. Then replicate it across the country, schools, clinics, shelters, all under one roof, all sustainable, powered by solar and heart. Alina blinked rapidly, still not quite believing this was real. "And they're really letting us do this?" "They're not letting us," Sundar replied with a small smile. "They're joining us." But even as her confidence grew, the tension beneath the surface deepened. Sundar hadn't yet told her about the email, the betrayal, the possibility that someone within their own team had leaked the hospital records. The investigation was ongoing, and his security advisor, Sahil, a sharp and quiet man who had worked with him for years, had warned him not to act until they were certain. But it weighed on Sundar heavily, and the weight was starting to show. He became quieter during meetings, more guarded in conversation. His eyes scanned rooms more often, his phone never far from reach. Alina noticed the shift one evening. After reviewing architecture drafts in a quiet conference room, she finally asked, "What's going on with you?" Sundar looked up from his tablet. "What do you mean?" "You're distracted, different. Something's wrong." He hesitated, then offered a soft sigh. "It's nothing important, just things I need to handle behind the scenes." Alina leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "If we're building something together, you can trust me. I'm not a child." He looked at her for a long moment, her eyes clear, her words unwavering. He wanted to tell her, but if he told her too soon, it might put her in danger. The wrong words in the wrong years could bring the whole vision crashing down. "Soon," he said gently. "I promise." But the words soon did little to calm the storm starting to build in Alina's heart. Asterisk days passed, then weeks, and the buzz around Alina didn't fade, it grew. Reporters started calling her a modern-day Cinderella, while influencers tried to ride her wave with sponsored kindness posts that fell hollow. People wanted selfies. Strangers asked if she could endorse their projects. And more than anything, they wanted her to be an icon. Alina didn't want to be an icon. She wanted to build shelters. One day, while reviewing construction estimates, she noticed something odd in the documentation. An anonymous donor had wired a large sum into the project fund. When she asked the finance lead about it, he shrugged. "Happens sometimes." Sundar knows. But Sundar didn't mention it in their meetings. That night, curiosity turned to worry. Alina stayed late at the hub, reviewing emails and documentation. The deeper she went, the stranger it became. There were digital trails leading nowhere, invoices sent from email domains that didn't exist a few days earlier, and a series of file names encrypted and password protected. It didn't feel like philanthropy. It felt like infiltration. Asterisk across town. Sahil met Sundar at a private corner of an upscale restaurant. "We have a name," Sahil said. Sundar leaned forward. "Who?" Sahil placed a file on the table. "She's one of your senior outreach consultants. Came on board 3 months ago. Her real name is Amaya. She's been working under a fake identity, and she's the one who sold the hospital records." Sundar's jaw clenched. "Do we know why?" "She's working for a competitor. Not just corporate, political. Someone who wants to weaken your public influence." Your rise in social advocacy makes you a threat in certain circles. What do we do now? Nothing loud? Not yet. We extract her quietly. And we trace her connections. Sundar nodded slowly. And Alina? Sahil hesitated. She should know. Soon. But not until we've contained it. If we scare the mole, she might go after Alina directly. Sundar's chest tightened, because deep down, he feared that had already begun. Asterisk that same night. Alina returned to her apartment and found an envelope slipped under the door. No name, no address. Inside was a single photo. Her mother, shopping. At a pharmacy dot on the back, a message written in block letters. We see you. Her blood turned cold. Her breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just about Project Hearthstone anymore. This was personal. She called Sundar immediately. Someone's watching us, she said, voice shaking. Where are you now? He asked quickly. At home. Don't move. I'm sending someone. Within 10 minutes, a car arrived. 2 quiet men stepped out and ushered Alina and her mother into the vehicle without explanation. They were taken to a secured guest residence. Near the hub high walls, private surveillance, and a 24-hour security team. When Sundar arrived, Alina was pacing the living room. Why didn't you tell me earlier? She demanded. He looked tired, worn, but he spoke gently. I didn't want you to carry this weight. Not when you were just finding your voice. I'm not fragile, she said. You don't need to protect me by hiding the truth. I know that now, he replied, and I'm sorry. He told her everything. About the mole, the leaked records, the sabotage attempts, and most importantly, how close the enemy had gotten. Tears welled up in Alina's eyes, not from fear, but from the ache of betrayal. I thought we were building something good, she whispered. We are, he said, and that's why they're trying to stop us. Asterisk. The next day, they held a private team meeting with only the most trusted members of the Hearthstone project. Sundar spoke first, revealing the infiltration and the need for tighter internal security. But when Alina stepped forward, she spoke from a different place, not of strategy, but of spirit. If we let fear control our vision, she said, voice steady, then we've already lost. I don't care who's watching, I won't stop, and I won't hide. The room was silent. Then applause broke out. Not loud, not showy, but powerful. People were choosing not just a mission, but her, and yet not everyone in the room clapped. A woman in the back, with dark hair and sharp eyes, kept her hands folded in her lap, her face unreadable. Her name tag read Maya. Sundar noticed. S-A-L noticed. But they said nothing. Yet, asterisk later that evening, while reviewing security footage of the guest residence, Sahil paused the video clip and zoomed in. He called Sundar immediately. We have a bigger problem. What is it? Sundar asked. Your guest residence has been compromised. Asterisk. Meanwhile, Alina stood on the balcony of her temporary safe house, staring out at the night sky. A wind brushed against her face, cool and sharp. Behind her. The lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then everything went dark. And a soft voice behind her said, You should have stayed behind the counter. Asterisk. Behind the Smilulina stood frozen on the balcony, the night around her growing colder by the second. The warm breeze that had gently kissed her face moments ago was now replaced by a quiet, suffocating stillness. She slowly turned around, heart hammering so loudly in her chest it felt like it echoed in her ears. The room behind her was dark, save for the faint glow of the city lights through the blinds. And then she saw her. Maya. Not the outreach consultant, with friendly emails and neat hair buns, who smiled politely in meetings and passed notes during brainstorming sessions. Not the Maya who once helped Alina organize her digital sketches or brought her coffee just last week. This Maya was different. Her hair was down now, her hands gloved, and her eyes empty. Cold. You shouldn't be here, Alina whispered, her voice trembling but defiant. Maya stepped closer, her footsteps silent on the hardwood floor. Neither should you. Alina's mind raced. Her phone was still on the table, too far to reach without turning her back. Her mother was asleep in the next room, unaware of the danger just a few feet away. Alina didn't know what Maya was capable of, but the way she moved, the way she spoke, it was clear she wasn't here to talk. Why? Alina asked. What did I do to you? Maya tilted her head, her expression unreadable. This isn't personal. It never was. You just became a symbol, and symbols are dangerous when they inspire the wrong people. The wrong people? Alina said, inching toward the hallway. People like you, Maya said, her voice steady. People who make others believe that hope is enough. That kindness wins. That the powerless can suddenly become powerful. It shakes the system. It threatens the ones who built their world on fear. Alina clenched her fists. So you destroy hope to protect greed? Maya's lips curled into something that might have been a smile or maybe just a twitch of amusement. I don't destroy. I reset balance. And right now you're a fire too bright to be left burning. Alina took a step back toward the door. She didn't know if Maya had a weapon. She didn't know if she was alone. All she knew was that she needed to protect her mother and herself. What now? Alina asked. You hurt me? Then what? You think Sundar won't come after you? You think the world won't care? Maya's gaze sharpened. Do you really think this is about Sundar? And then she said something that chilled Alina to the bone. I worked with him. I know what he's hiding. Alina's breath caught. What are you talking about? Ask him, Maya said. Ask him what he had to give up to build Google. Ask him who he turned away. Who he left behind? He built his empire with clean hands, but someone else swept up blood. Before Alina could respond, the door burst open. Two security officers flooded the room, weapons drawn but restrained. Maya didn't flinch. She raised her hand slowly and smiled again, as if she had planned this all along. Took you long enough? She said. Asterisk, asterisk, Sundar arrived within minutes. He found Alina sitting on the edge of the bed, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the floor. Her mother was safe in another room, unaware of the confrontation that had nearly unfolded just outside her door. He knelt in front of her, gently. Are you hurt? Alina shook her head, but then she looked up, and there was something in her eyes Sundar hadn't seen before. Doubt. Not in herself, but in him. She said, you're hiding something. Alina said quietly, something from your past. Sundar hesitated. Not because he didn't expect the question, but because he'd always known it would come. He sat beside her. The room was silent, save for the distant hum of a generator restoring the power. Worked with us years ago, he said slowly. In the early days, she was brilliant, too brilliant. But reckless, unethical. She believed in control through manipulation, not empowerment. When I refused to use her ideas, surveillance tech, that invaded people's lives, she left. Or rather, I forced her out. She said you left people behind, Alina whispered. I did, Sundar said, his voice laced with pain. In the beginning, I had to make choices. Hard ones. We were just a small group of engineers trying to build something meaningful. But to reach the top, I signed deals I regret. I trusted people who betrayed that trust. And yes, some were left behind. He looked at her, no longer the CEO, but just a man grappling with the ghosts of his rise. I've made mistakes, Alina. More than I can count. But I never forgot where I came from. And when I met you, something changed. You reminded me why I started. You reminded me of who I used to be. Tears brimmed in Alina's eyes. Not because she was angry, but because she understood. She had her own regrets, her own burdens. And now she saw Sundar not as a titan of industry, but as someone who, like her, had tried to build something beautiful from broken bricks. What now? She asked. We clear the air. He said, publicly. Asterisk, asterisk, the next morning. Sundar held a press conference, not with a polished stage or an expensive backdrop, but from the rooftop of a half-built Hearthstone Center in Oakland. Surrounded by scaffolding and blueprints and dust, reporters stood in a circle. Drones hovered silently above. Sundar stepped forward, Alina by his side. and spoke. You've heard rumors. You've read the headlines. Now you'll hear the truth. He told them everything. About the betrayal, the smear campaign, Maya, his past. The deals he wished he hadn't made. The dreams he had nearly lost in the rush to build an empire. And then he said, we all have choices. Mine led me to power. But hers, he gestured. Toward Alina, led her to give a free cup of coffee to a stranger. And that kindness changed everything. Alina stepped up, trembling at first, but her voice soon found strength. They tried to destroy my story because it was simple, because it was real, but I'm still here. And now we're building something together. Not just shelters, but sanctuaries. Not just headlines, but hope. The crowd fell silent. Then a wave of applause rippled through it, raw and sincere, asterisk, asterisk. But even as the applause echoed across the rooftop, Maya, now in a secure detention facility, watched from a screen inside. Her holding cell, her smile hadn't faded. She leaned back against the cold wall and whispered to herself, you think it's over? Asterisk, asterisk later that night, Sundar and Alina sat in the quiet chill of the soon-to-be Heartstone Center. The stars were just beginning to emerge like shy children peeking from behind clouds. You sure you're still up for this? Sundar asked Alina. Nodded slowly, more than ever. But then she hesitated. You know she's not done, right? Sundar's jaw tightened. I know. Then what do we do? He turned to her with a quiet intensity in his eyes. We build faster than they can destroy. Asterisk, asterisk, just as they stood to leave, Alina's phone vibrated. A message. She opened it. No sender. Just a location pin. And 4 chilling words. You forgot the rest. Asterisk, echoes of the first cup night was colder than it should have been for late spring in California. The stars above the Oakland skyline blinked like ancient watchers, distant and indifferent, as the world below moved forward in quiet suspense. Alina stood by the window of the half-constructed Hearthstone Center, her fingers gripping her phone tightly, the message still glowing. On the screen, you forgot the rest. Below that, a location pin pulsed faintly. A small cafe on the far edge of the city, not one she recognized, not Bean and Soul, not any place she'd ever visited. But something about it felt personal, calculated. Sundar stood nearby, his eyes locked on the screen as well. He had seen enough to understand that this wasn't just another breadcrumb from Maya's campaign. This was an invitation. Or a challenge. It could be a trap. Sahil warned from the side, watching them both closely. We have no idea who sent it. It could be one of Maya's associates. It could be worse. Alina spoke before Sundar could. I want to go. Sahil frowned. Absolutely not. I need to know what she means by the rest. What did we forget? What is she still holding over us? Sundar looked at her, his face tired but firm. She wasn't a barista anymore. She wasn't the frightened girl behind the counter. She had changed, hardened in places, softened in others. She was becoming something far more powerful. Then we go together, he said quietly. Asterisk, asterisk, the drive was long and quiet. The city lights faded into the outskirts, where forgotten buildings leaned into one another like tired old friends. The cafe in question was barely lit, tucked between a laundromat and a boarded-up flower shop. The sign above the door was faded, its name unreadable from the car. They stepped inside, flanked by plainclothes security who blended in as customers. The place was mostly empty, save for a woman sitting in the far booth. Her posture relaxed, her face hidden behind a newspaper. As they approached. She folded it down. It wasn't Maya. It was someone older. Mid-60s, sharp eyes, a face worn not just by time but by battle. She didn't stand. She simply gestured. To the booth, have a seat. Alina and Sundar exchanged glances. Ben sat. Who are you? Sundar asked, direct. Someone who knew Maya before she turned into what you saw. The woman placed a folder on the table and slid it across. She left behind a contingency plan, in case she was caught. Her idea of poetic justice. I'm not her ally, but I believe you should know what's in there before she weaponizes it. Alina, open the folder. What she saw made her stomach churn. Dozens of manipulated images, fabricated documents, emails spliced and altered to frame Sundar as having orchestrated the leak against Alina himself, painting her as a paid actor, a puppet in a corporate marketing ploy. It was deepfake propaganda. Convincing. Dangerous. The woman spoke again. She planned to release these anonymously during the launch of your first Hearthstone Center. Publicly frame it as a betrayal. Make the public turn on you both. Alina looked up, her voice barely a whisper. Why are you giving this to us? The woman smiled, sad and tired. Because for once, someone chose kindness first. And I've been waiting my whole life to see someone do that and not be destroyed for it. Asterisk, asterisk, the next 48 hours passed in a blur. Sundar's cybersecurity teams worked around the clock, scrubbing the web for any signs of the files. PR teams drafted statements. Forensic analysts authenticated the folder's contents to prepare legal action. Alina, however, made a different choice. She asked for a quiet moment. No cameras, no assistants. Just her and the microphone. And then she posted a video. It wasn't flashy. She sat at the same counter where she had once given Sundar that first free cup of coffee. Now reopened and restored as part of the Hearthstone pilot site. She looked directly into the lens. There will always be people who try to tell you that kindness is a weakness. That if you show heart, you'll be exploited. But they're wrong. Kindness isn't weakness. It's rebellion. It's resistance. And it's more powerful than hate ever will be. She paused. I never asked for the spotlight. I never asked for any of this. I just wanted to help someone. And that someone changed my life. If people think that's staged, if they want to believe the lies, I can't stop them. But I can keep building. I can keep choosing light. And that's what I'll do every day, with or without the headlines. The video ended, and the world responded. Millions of views in hours. The hashtag with Alina trended in over 20 countries. Celebrities who had stayed silent now stepped forward with support. Survivors of online harassment began sharing their own stories, calling her brave. But more than that, donations to Hearthstone surged. Not just from the wealthy, but from everyday people. Kids donating allowance, waiters donating tips, homeless shelters mailing in quarters taped to notebook paper. A movement had begun. Asterisk, weeks passed. Mia's network unraveled. The manipulated files were discredited and traced. Charges were filed. But more importantly, the construction of the first Hearthstone Center was completed. On the grand opening day, the building buzzed with energy. Inside its bright halls were clean dorms, classrooms, mental health counseling offices, and a cafe run entirely by people who had once been unemployed or unhoused. Alina stood in front of the crowd, her mother by her side, now healthier, stronger. Sundar stood nearby, not in a spotlight, but watching her like a proud friend. She stepped up to the podium. This place isn't built on money, she said. It's built on moments. On the day someone gave without asking, and the day someone returned that kindness tenfold. On trust and risk and forgiveness. She paused. This is more than a building. It's proof that when the world tries to silence compassion, we can choose to speak louder. Tears filled many eyes that day, including Sundar's. Asterisk later that evening, after the crowd had gone, and the center was filled with quiet laughter from children playing in their new learning space. Sundar sat at a small table in the cafe. Alina brought him a cup of black coffee. No sugar, no cream. On the house? She said with a soft grin. He looked up at her, smiling. You sure you can afford to give free coffee now? Absolutely, she said. You wouldn't believe the tip you left me. They laughed. And in that quiet corner, the story came full circle. Asterisk, months later. At a ceremony in India, Sundar stood on stage to receive an award for humanitarian leadership. But when he reached the microphone, he said something unexpected. I don't deserve this award. Not alone. The person who truly deserves this is a woman who reminded me that no matter how powerful you become, you're never too big to be humbled by a cup of coffee. He invited Alina to join him on stage, and the crowd erupted. Asterisk, asterisk, across the world. Bean and Seoul reopened as a chain of community. Cafes, each employing people from local shelters and providing free meals weekly to those in need. The napkin Sundar had signed, "Thank you for the coffee." It was more than just a drink, was framed and displayed in every location. A symbol, a spark, the start of something unstoppable, asterisk, asterisk, and in a small room in a prison facility, Maya watched it all from behind a glass screen. But even she smiled, because deep down, even in her fractured heart, she knew that somehow the kindness had won. Asterisk.